when I was a child, I was very conscious of poverty because we were really poor. But always my father was in work, so that helped to take the edge off of poverty. But it was pretty grim. As my mother used to say, I'd mend your clothes if I had the money for cotton. For cotton, that's what she used to get. So I had that, but we always ate. So I was very conscious of being among the poor, and particularly with my father, because I used to go into the shop where he served and sit under the counter and then hear the local aristocracy, Lord Long used to come in, and people like that. It was a shop that sold everything. And the way they spoke to my father, I was so shocked that he could even accept the dismissive way he was addressed, you know. So that was one of the things that motivated me before I got anywhere near politics, about disliking rich people. I really hated them. And also a bit ashamed that he could put up with it. And then my brother being killed, and my feelings about how we should never have a war again. And I remember my mother being in tears night after night after he was killed. And because she'd always said he shouldn't have joined up, and the rest of things like that. So in a way, you know, certain things remain in your mind regardless of what's happened. So I'd never ever wanted anything to do with my country going to war, right? And I didn't want the poverty and the indignity of poverty to remain. So I was kicked out of the party that I'd been in since 1949, I suppose. Just at the time I was becoming significant, or when I got elected to the TUC, I think. So it was a bit of you may have seen it in the paper. So, well, I remember on Kinnock being asked on the television, "What are you going to do about Ken Gill? Is he going to join the Labour Party?" He said, "He hasn't asked me yet." When I finally became General Secretary, I became more and more involved in international things, because I've always felt internationalism or international solidarity was the key to so many of the problems, obviously, that face the world. Unless we can get people together, individual governments are not going to be able to exist. So being involved in that, I remember going to Vietnam during the war, and toured the country during the war, and saw some of the destruction, saw some of the heroism. It was one of the most stimulating, it's quite beyond description, of young women who worked in the fields, and their job was to defend that bridge. In fact, It was a sort of totem for everything that was going on, because the fields around the bridge were peppered with aircraft that had been shot down, and these women were all anti-aircraft specialists, and they used to rebuild that bridge after every raid, because it was the link that took the money and material and everything to the south and to the front. So, to me, the solutions remain the same, because capitalism has only demonstrated at this particular time how vulnerable it is to people's greed and exploitation. In fact, classic Marxism. So the answer remains the same as far as I'm concerned. So you've got to think of it in terms of what is the problem. Well, the problem is still mass poverty throughout the world, relative poverty in Britain, and the threat to world peace, which I think is increasing. So the solutions, socialism, somehow has to seek through, but I'm increasingly believing that it's going to be forced on us, rather than us taking the sort of intellectual decision to pursue it, because everywhere else in the world it's beginning to happen. One of the most thrilling things to me has been the developments in Latin America. And also it has made me feel very proud of the fact that I, from an early age, felt that Cuba was going to be a key to greater things. Like when I, mind you, when I was a schoolboy and decided I was a communist, I was convinced that Paul Robeson, after the war, would be the President of the United States. But nevertheless, I think that there is a tremendous hope in what is happening in Latin America. And I also feel that Latin America will have, together with China, a real influence in the end over what's happening in Africa. And if we are enclosed by societies that are changing, it's going to be very difficult to stand outside it. And I think that when we get more and more problems, then the solutions are, like we thought of in the old days of the Soviet Union, also being practiced in other places. So I find that very thrilling. My view of the world, I'm more optimistic than I was a long time ago. I don't think that in the end this crisis of capitalism, I mean, obviously we've got to fight back and try to improve people's lot, regardless of what the so-called capitalist crisis says. But outside that, I think that the hopes still rest in the revolutionary instincts of millions of people throughout the world.